Hello everyone. In this video, we are going to see math functions in SQL. First, we will see the functions ceil and floor. The ceil function returns the next integer value of a given fraction number, whereas the floor function returns the previous integer value of a given fraction number. Let us take an example and then try to see how ceil and floor are used. Consider we have a table supermarket sales, which has 5 columns. The first is the invoice ID. Then we have the product line like health and beauty, sports and travel. Then we have the unit price, that is the price at which that particular product was sold. Then the quantity, that is the number of units of that product sold. And finally, we have cost of the goods sold. Now let us consider the problem statement. We need to get the next integer values and the previous integer values of unit price for each of the product. Can you figure that out? Take a moment to figure the output. Pause the video and once you are done, we will then proceed. Alright, I hope you got it right. We need to only refer to the unit price column. And according to the question, what do we need? We need the next and the previous integer values of the unit price. So for example, in the first row, we have the unit price as 74.69. So the next int value is 75. And the previous int value of 74.69 is 74. Similarly, for 15.28, the next int value is 16 and the previous is 15. Good. Now let's go to Metabase and try to write the query for this. So here first, let us see the table supermarket sales. And let us select star from our table name, that is supermarket sales. Let me run this. So as I said, this table gives us all the information about the sales, like what product was purchased, when, and how many quantities and price of the product was being sold. So here we have the unit price column. Now we need the previous and next integer values. So here we will use the functions ceil and floor. So let me select column unit price and let me use the function ceil. We want the ceil on which column? On the unit price. And floor on the unit price from our table name, which is supermarket sales. Now let us run this. So as you can see, we've got all the rows, the next integer value and the previous integer value. Let us consider one record. The first record we have 74.69. So ceil, that is the next integer value is 75 and the previous is 74. Similarly, goes on for all other values in our entire table. Now let us see the syntax of ceil and floor functions. So here the syntax is quite simple. We have the ceil and floor keywords and the parameter or argument to is number. Number is the any numeric value which you want to get the next higher value or the previous integer value. Let's move on to the next math function. Here we have round and abs. Round. The round function is used to round a number to a specified number of decimal places. Abs, that is ABS, which is also called as absolute function, that is used to return the positive number whenever you are giving it any negative number. Let's try another problem to understand these round and abs functions. So here we have again our table supermarket sales and our problem is we need to calculate the average unit price of all products. Now, what should this average value be? We need to round this value to the nearest 2 decimal places. Then for each product, we need to get the magnitude, that is the absolute value of the difference between the product's unit price and the rounded average unit price. Let us break this problem and then solve this one by one. First, we will solve for the average unit price of all products. This is quite simple to get. Can you pause the video and just try to use any aggregation function which we can use to get the average unit price of all these products? We can use the AVG aggregation function. Now, how will we calculate the average of this? That is, we add all these unit price and then divide by the total number of records or the total number of rows. So, in our example, we will get the average unit price as 50.08666 and so on. Next, what they have asked in our question? We need to round this value to the nearest 2 decimal places. So, for this part of the question, our output should look like 50.09. Now great, we have solved 2 parts of the question. We have got the average value and we have found the rounded value with 2 decimal places. Now, we need to find the magnitude or the absolute value of the difference between the unit price and this rounded average unit price. Can you calculate the output for this data set? Try to figure out on your own. We will pause the video and then we'll calculate it together. Okay, here we have the output. In this output, we see that we are subtracting the unit price, that is 74.69, minus the average value which we found. That too rounded it to 2 decimal places, that is 50.09. So in the first record, as we see, when we subtract 74 minus 50, we get 24.6. So we give an absolute or ABS math function in front of it. So the absolute value of a positive number is a positive number. So we got same 24.6. Now take for the second row. In second row, we are subtracting 15.28 minus 50. So that will result in negative 34.81, right? But since we have used the absolute function, the output of this will always be a positive number, that is 34.81. Now let us go to Metabase and try to write each of these queries separately. Now, we have this question. Let us see the table first. That is, select star from supermarket sales. Here, again we are concentrating on the unit price column. So as we said, we will concentrate on each part of this problem. So first, we will calculate the average unit price of all the products. For that, we can use select average of which column? Unit price column. From supermarket sales. Now let us run this query. So we've got an average of the unit price as 55.67. Now the next question is we need to round it to 2 places. Let me use the round function. Round this value to 2 decimal places. Now let us run this query. So we've got the same 55.67. Now we need to calculate the absolute value of the difference between the unit price and the rounded value. For that, we need select unit price minus this value. So I will use this as a subquery in my main query. I will give an alias to it as, let me put this in a bracket, as magnitude from our supermarket sales. Now let us run this. As you can see, we've got the absolute or the magnitude values. Since still we have not used the absolute function. So you can see we have minus values. 19, minus 40, minus 3, 2, 30, 29. But now we need the absolute values. So the entire result, I will use an abs keyword or the math function. Now let us run this. So as you can see, the negative sign is gone. We've got only the positive numbers. Now let us see the syntax of round and abs function. In round function, we give the number and how many number of decimals do we want to round it to. In abs, we just give the number which we want to get the absolute value. That is, it just gives the positive values. That is, it removes the minus sign from the negative values. The next function is mod. The mod function returns the remainder of a number divided by another number. Let us take an example for this. Here again we will consider the supermarket sales table. Now suppose you want to get the sales data for rows with an even value of the quantity of goods sold. I think this is quite simple to guess the output. Can you pause the video and guess the output? Like which of these rows has an even value of quantity of goods sold? We have these 4 records. As you can see, the quantity column in this are all even numbers. Let's write the query for this in Metabase. We need to get the sales data with rows with an even value of quantity. So how can we get to know whether a number is even or not? When the mod will give us 0 value. That is, if the number is divided by 2, if we have the remainder as 0, then we can say that the number is an even number. So let us apply the same logic in our query. Select star from supermarket sales, and we need only those records where quantity is even number. So we need to filter the data. For filtering, we will use the where clause. Where mod of the quantity divided by 2 be equal to 0. That is, when you divide quantity by 2, the remainder should be 0. Then we can say that that particular value is an even value. Now let us run this query. We've got all these rows. Now you can see here the quantity column, you will see just the even values. You won't see any odd values here. Suppose you want to see all the odd values of the quantity, then you can give when divided by 2, if it is not equal to 0, that means the quantity is an odd number. Now you see all the rows of the quantity column, you will see all the odd numbers. Now let us see the syntax of mod. As we have seen, mod takes 2 arguments. The first is the number 1, that is the dividend. The second is the divisor, from which you want to divide number 1. The next math function is power, which can also be written as POW, also POWER. The power function returns the value of a number raised to a power of another number. Let us take an example again. Consider the supermarket sales table. Now you need to get the variance of quantity of goods sold. You may have heard the term variance before in statistics. Let's calculate it for the quantity column in our case. Variance is nothing but how much the values in a data set differ from the mean value. It is equal to the mean of the squared differences between each value and the mean value. Let us first reference our quantity column here. In order to calculate variance, we first need to get the average value. Now, what is the average quantity value here? And how can we calculate that? For calculating the average, we'll have to add on the quantity values divided by 6. That is the total number of rows here. In our example, we get the average quantity as 6.33. Now we need to get the square difference between each quantity and the average value. So, how this will look like? 7, that is the quantity value, minus the average value to the power of 2. We are squaring it and we get that value as 0.44 in the case of first row. In the second row, 5 is the quantity value minus the average value. And how did we get the average? By calculating sum of the quantities divided by the total number of records or rows, which was 6 in our case. Then we square it and we get the output as 1.77. Once we got the square difference of all the quantity values, then we need to find the average of those square differences. That will result us in the variance of quantity of goods sold. Now let us try to write this in Metabase, step by step. So we need to get the variance quantity. So first, as I said, we need to calculate the average quantity. So how can we do that? Select average of quantity from our supermarket sales. So this resulted us in 5.51 is the average quantity. Next, we need to find the difference. That is, we need to subtract the quantity minus this average quantity and then square this value. That is to the power of 2. So first, let me calculate the difference of the quantity and the average quantity. So I'll do select quantity minus the average quantity. What's my average quantity? This value. Let me copy this value and use it as a subquery. So I'll just get the difference first from supermarket sales. Let us run this. So we've got just the difference of the quantity and the average quantity. Now we have to square this. So for squaring, we will use the function power, P-O-W. So we need to square it, so power to the power of 2. So we mention here 2. Now we will check the output. So these are the values when we square it. Now after squaring this, we need to find the average of the squared difference. Average of this value. So we will just use the average aggregation function on this. I will just write AVG and alias as variance from supermarket sales. So we've got 8.54 as the variance of quantity. One more thing I can tell you here is, instead of POW, you can also use POWER. We will still get the same output because both the functions use the same logic. Now, SQL also provides one more function, which is a variance function, which will simply calculate this entire value and give you. So I need the variance of quantity from supermarket sales. We've got 8.54. I have showed you this query because in this you will be able to understand how we have used the power function, the average function, the subqueries and got the variance. So great. We have also learned now power math function. So the syntax of power is, it takes two arguments, number 1 and number 2. Number 1 is the base, number 2 is the exponent. That is, to what power you want to use. That is, in our case, we have used 2. That is to the power of 2. Now let's summarize what we have seen in this video. We have seen the math functions ceil and floor. Ceil is used to get the next integer value. Floor is used to get the previous integer value of a given fraction number. Then we saw round and absolute. Round is used to get the specified number of decimal places. Abs, that is absolute, is used to return the positive value of a number. Next we saw mod. Mod, it returns the remainder of a number when you divide it by another number. Power, which we have just seen, it is used to get the value of a number raised to the power of another number. Fantastic. With this, we've wrapped up this module. Now see you in the next one. Thank you.